Okay, today we're going to talk about in our Realtor 101 class the buyer's kit and the listing kit. I'm going to use eBrokerHouse for my examples, and I'll also show you how to pull them up on the MLS via transaction desk. So, you have a buyer and you're ready to make an offer on a property. A couple things that you want to do. You go to eBrokerHouse and sign in. You'll go to Documents. And you'll go here to Buyer's Kit. You'll notice right up here you'll have all the information that you need for your buyer's offer. Okay? So, what you'll want to do is determine whether this is an as-is offer or a conventional offer. An as-is offer, typically on the listing, it'll say that it's an as-is property. If that's the case, then you want to use an as-is contract. The primary differences with the as-is and the residential contract for sale and purchase are that the as-is contract has the wood-destroying organisms and mold clauses taken out of it. Okay? If there's an HOA, you're going to want an HOA addendum. You'll want to make sure that you have your buyer sign an energy brochure for you. You need to give them that. You need to give them a for your protection get a home inspection. If the property was built in 1979 or before, you'll want to get a lead-based home, don't eat the paint addendum signed. Okay? If it's a short sale, you'll want the short sale addendum. At this point, I can pretty much tell you stay away from short sales at all cost. That's my opinion. It's not worth your time and your buyer's time. We're past the short sale market. It's a very small portion of the market. Based on my experience, the current agents who list short sales list them way under market value, so they're never going to get approved by the lender. Make sure, in my opinion, again, to steer your buyers away from short sale listings. If they absolutely want it, then so be it, but I would steer them away. So, we're going to say that this is a regular sale, not an as-is. And again, there's really just subtle differences in terms of what's on the contract. Nothing really changes in terms of what you want to fill out. So you can either click on the eBrokerHouse one and print this out and write it manually, or what I do is you can go to your MLS. I use Transaction Desk. I'm not a big fan of Form Simplicity, but you can either use Form Simplicity or Transaction Desk. I use Transaction Desk. Now what I'm going to do is work with individual forms. I go to individual forms. And here I'm just going to type in parts of the name of what I'm looking for. So in this case, I'm looking for residential contract for sale. And it tells me 5 forms were found. I click OK and it'll highlight the forms. And notice it highlighted an as-is contract, which we don't want. Residential contract for sale and purchase, which is what we're looking for. So we click on that and we hit create new form. Now this will set it up so you have the ability to fill in these areas. When you're done filling in all this information, you want to go up here and go to print. Don't go up here to print because it'll just print what's on your screen. You want to go to File and Print. Now once you have it here, then you'll want to come up here and print, or you can save it as a PDF if you're wanting to put it in DocuSign or something like that for signatures. Okay? So here, you're going to put your seller's name. If there's 2 people, you're going to put the seller's name. So if it's Bob Smith, and Wilma Smith. And if they're husband and wife, you want to define the relationship here. If they're brother and sister, husband and wife, you want to put husband and wife. Okay? You're going to leave this. That's if you have the sellers. Here you're going to put your buyer's name, buyer 1, and buyer 2, also husband and wife. Now if you don't know if the seller's a husband, what their relationship status is, you don't have to put it in there. You're going to put the street address, Orlando, Florida, 32201. Property is located in Orange County. And then the tax ID number. Now, what I recommend is you going to the property appraiser site for the county. So if it's Orange County, type in Orange County Property Appraiser. Do a record search and type in the address for the property. And you can do that for any county. Seminole County Property Appraiser, Osceola County Property Appraiser, Lake County Property Appraiser, Volusia County Property Appraiser, Polk County Property Appraiser. All the sites look a little different, but you'll always go to record search and you'll always type in the address. That'll let you know who actually owns the property and what their correct name is. Okay. The MLS will give you the tax information on the property. So we'll just use the active listing we have here. So you can go here and here's your tax ID information. Okay, so you will enter that right here, and then also the legal description will be in the MLS. So your legal description is right here. Sometimes it's really long, sometimes it's very short, but you'll want to put the legal description in as well. If there's any personal items that you're wanting in the purchase of this property that aren't listed right here, you need to place it right here. I'm sorry, that you don't want, you need to put right here. Personal property is included in purchase price, has no contributory value, and shall be left for the buyer. The following items are excluded. So, okay, let me get this right. If you want additional items that aren't listed right here, you'll put them here. Okay? If the following items are excluded in the purchase, they'll typically, unless the buyer specifically doesn't want them and wants them removed, it'll typically be right here what conveys and what does not convey. Okay, usually it's in the realtor remarks. Like this is a perfect example. All refrigerators, fridge, water, dryer, drapes, rods, curtains, and master bath, blah, blah, blah. The following does not convey. Okay, and then it lists what does not convey. So you can put that information here. Next you go is your purchase price. Okay, we want to offer $250,000. Our buyer's going to offer that. So 25000. Okay. What are you putting down in escrow? We're going to put down $10,000 in escrow. Typically you want to put between 1 and 3% down in escrow, depending on the size. So we'll say $10,000. Okay, check 1. A company's offer is to be made within X amount of days. Always check this one and just put 3. If you don't know the title company, in Central Florida, it's reasonable and customary for the seller to choose title. If your buyer demands to choose title, your buyer pays title insurance, so keep that in mind. Seller pays title insurance when the seller chooses. If you don't know what it is, you can just put TBD, to be determined. If for whatever reason you're putting an additional amount in escrow, you would put it here. That's typically not the case. So it's $250,000, $10,000 down. Right now it reads $240,000 due at closing in cash. However, let's say we're financing it. You can either express it as a dollar amount or percentage. I prefer a dollar amount. So we put 10,000 down and 250,000, and we're doing a conventional loan. So we're doing 80% financed. So 200,000 here. Okay. So we're going to finance 200,000, which requires your buyer to bring 40,000 to closing. Okay. So we offered 250,000. We're putting 10,000 down. We're financing 200,000, and our buyer needs to bring 40,000 to closing. Time for acceptance of the offer. If you're showing this property during the week and you're making an offer during the week, don't wait till the following week, or don't give the seller till the following week to make a decision. Because if you can beat the weekend rush, then so be it. Beat the weekend rush. So let's say you saw it on Tuesday, your buyers made an offer on Wednesday. I would just give them until Thursday or Friday. I would not give more than 48 hours. I would actually prefer you give 24 hours for the seller to make their decision. Okay, so today is the 2nd, and I'm going to say I want a decision tomorrow, by end of day tomorrow. Closing date, if it's a finance deal, I'd go 45 to 60 days out. Now what I like to do, and just for numbers' sake, we'll just do this. What I like to do is put on or before April 18th, 2016. That way, if for whatever reason we can close quicker, then so be it. Let's close quicker. Okay, does that make sense? 45 to 60 days if you're financing the deal. If you're doing a cash deal, I wouldn't put more than 30 days. Title can typically get done within 2 weeks. So I wouldn't put more than 30 days as your closing date if it's cash, unless there's some extenuating demands or circumstances that your buyer wants. On the defaults, always fill in your defaults. Don't let anything blank. My first broker taught me that. If something's blank, fill it in. The situation here, assignability. What assignability means is if you have your offer accepted and then your buyer says, you know what, I don't want this property anymore, but my friend wants it, so I'm going to assign this contract to my friend Scott. So I'm going to send an addendum that says, buyer is assigning contract to Scott. And then Scott becomes the buyer of this property. Wholesalers like to do this. You don't want to do that. You want to say may not assign this contract, because sellers typically do not like that. Financing, you're going to put in what type of financing. We're going to say this is this is if it's cash. VA, FHA, we're going to say it's conventional. Okay, and we want to have it done and approved within 45 days. Just click fixed or adjustable. I usually put a high interest rate here, but we'll say 5% in 30 years. Okay, it really doesn't matter. Just keep that 30 years. I mean, if it's 15 years, it's not a big deal. Buyer shall make mortgage loan application within 5 days of signing the contract. Typically, they've done it before that. Your buyer's not going to want to wait on getting their financing anyway, so they'll do it within the 5 days. This is just saying what the buyer will do once they receive the loan commitment, so they'll notify the seller that they've been approved or that they've been denied. Okay, just so you know, the two situations where the majority of buyers walk on deals. One, they can't get financing for whatever reason, or the property doesn't appraise. That's especially important with financing, not so much with cash deals. And two, on home inspection. Your buyer has the right to walk if they're not satisfied with the home inspection, as long as it's within the time frame for home inspections that you agreed upon in the contract, which we'll get to. Closing costs, you really don't need to fill out any of this information here. This is just giving you a breakdown of the closing costs that are due, and then a breakdown of costs paid by the buyer. So these are costs paid by the seller typically, and these are costs that are typically paid by the buyer. Title evidence and insurance, if blank, then 15 days, so you just put 15 days in there. Seller shall designate a closing agent. Seller chooses title. Again, if your buyer's demanding to choose title, keep in mind they're going to pay the title insurance and not the seller, which could be $1,000 some odd bucks. Then we have definitions and when things will be done. The survey will be done on or before the title evidence deadline day. Is there a home warranty? Is the buyer requesting a home warranty from the seller? Are they paying for a home warranty themselves, or do they not want it? In this case, we'll say we don't want it. But you could say, yeah, we want the seller to do it, issued by whatever home warranty company you want, not to exceed $500. Okay? If the seller agrees to that, great, but that's a negotiable item. Special assessments. These are special assessments like private roads being paved. It gives a breakdown of what special assessments are for a particular community. Typically what's done here is the seller will pay installments prior to closing and buyer shall pay installments after closing. But you have two negotiable items here. Okay, but typically, I don't know, let's say that you're closing on February and in January there's a $200 special assessment, and there's a total of $400 and $200 in January and $200 in February. The seller would pay the amount up to the closing date in February. So February would be prorated, including the payment in January, and then whatever the remaining prorated amount is, or after proration, is the buyer would pay after closing. Your disclosures are your definitions. Radon gas, what radon gas is, what permit disclosures are, what mold is, what flood zone elevation certifications are. The energy brochure. Two things you have to give your buyer. You have to give your buyer. Two things you have to give your buyer. Okay? One, for your energy efficiency brochure, you have to give them this. Okay? You only have to give it to them once, but you have to give them this. So I would recommend that you have 2 copies of this, okay? And have them initial your copy and date it so you know when you gave it to them and that they received it. It is important that they have that information because it is required. And the other one, for your protection, get a home inspection. What you can typically do with this is have them sign it and date it, and then whatever property you're going to make an offer on, put the property address here. Okay, and we're going to keep that for our files, but we have to have that as well. Regardless of the property, whether it's new construction, bank-owned, conventional sale, we need to have both of those pieces of information sent to the buyer and some type of written acknowledgement that they've received it. So make sure you have those. Back to the contract. Again, these are all definitions, what property management is, or maintenance is, seller's disclosures, property taxes, etc. I would read over these just so you're familiar with them when you can describe them. What I say is these are all definitions. Again, what radon gas is, it's naturally occurring radioactive gas. It's everywhere. Permit disclosures, what this means in terms of the seller having to have the permits closed out. What mold is, what flood zone and elevation certifications are. I strongly encourage Mr. and Mrs. Buyer that you read this information if you'd like. Lead-based paint, 9 times out of 10 they don't though. They just say, okay, I get it. what lead-based paint is, homeowners associations, etc. Okay, down to part 12. Here, your home inspection period, I would put anywhere between 10 and 15 days. You can usually get a home inspection done in 48 hours, depending on the availability of the home inspector. 1. You do not choose the home inspector for the buyer. I repeat, you do not choose the home inspector for the buyer. It is up to the buyer to choose. They can price out as freely as they wish. You can say, I have one that I typically use that I can recommend to you. However, you are more than welcome to search for other home inspectors on your own. Okay? Ideally, you'd want to have 2 to 3 home inspectors that you can give them that you trust, and then they can choose between those. I usually put 10 days because I don't want to wait 15 days over 2 weeks to do the home inspection part of it. I want us to get it done and get this file moving along. But with that said, within this 10-day period, so let's say we execute, the seller agrees to the contract and they sign it and execute the deal. A contract is executed on the last signature on the date of the last signature of the parties involved. So if you have 2 sellers and one signs it on the 1st and one signs it on the 10th, then the execution date is the 10th, and that's when the home inspection time starts. So you have 10 days from the execution of the last signer on the contract. Okay? Then you have your 10 days. So if you get your inspection done on day 10 and you state, hey, the buyer got the inspection done and they don't want the property, you're within your rights. The buyer can cancel the contract and have the escrow returned. If you do the inspection on the 11th day and say your buyer no longer wants the home based on inspection, you're out of your inspection time period, and the seller can disagree and either claim your escrow or make a claim on your escrow, and your buyer is in breach of contract, which may result in further penalties or litigious pursuit. So whatever your time frame is upon that last date of execution, you want to make sure that home inspection is done and your buyers have made their decision. So if you want to feel more comfortable with 15 days, you can, but typically I've found that buyers put things off if they know they have 15 days. General property inspection and repair. These are, again, definitions of what these are. Property condition, what needs to be free of leaks, water damage, and structural damage. It goes and continues down here. Gives your definition of wood-destroying organisms and wood-destroying repair. Inspection and closeout of building permits. This is just stating that the seller needs to have all this closed out and taken care of if they have any outstanding permits prior to closing. Walkthrough inspection. This is your buyer's right to do a final walkthrough. You typically do your final walkthrough either 24 hours before closing or day of closing. A lot of times buyers want to do the final walkthrough in the morning right before they go to the closing. What the final walkthrough is for is if the property needs to be in the same condition or better than it was when your buyers initially walked through the property to determine whether they wanted the property. Okay, so if when you visited the property and there was beautiful fan fixtures and stainless steel appliances and everything had stated that it conveyed, and then on the final walkthrough you go through and suddenly there's standard blah white fans and white appliances, your seller is in breach of contract and the buyer can either stop closing until the seller puts back everything that needs to be placed back, or they can cancel the contract. Now, what I suggest, because it's not uncommon, well, it's not unheard of for this to happen. I've had it happen to me before, and you will too, as you progress through your real estate career. If something is changed in the property that was not supposed to be changed, you do not close until that is rectified. Okay, a lot of times the situation or the feeling people get is, what do we do? We don't have a choice. We're closing. No, you postpone that closing, and you notify the seller or the listing agent, hey, that beautiful Viking stove that was in there that was supposed to convey, well, that's gone, and there's a dented old white stove in there. You need to get that other stove back in there ASAP. Again, if the seller chooses not to do that, then they are in breach of contract, and your buyer may pursue for further litigious consequences. Repair standards, assignment of repair, treatment of contract warranties. This is just saying any type of contracts, etc., warranties that are assignable, such as termite bonds. There might be a home warranty already on it that conveys. Anything that can potentially convey that involves repairs, treatments, etc., lawn maintenance contracts, whatever, that the buyer wants and can convey, the seller will convey prior to closing or at closing. This is definition of an escrow agent. This is saying what the liabilities of the broker are on professional advice. Okay, and it's really kind of a hold harmless. This is our protection for professional advice. Again, we do not give professional advice on termites. We do not give professional advice on home inspections. We do not give professional advice on tax consequences. We are residential real estate professionals, but we will be happy to connect them with a tax advisor, a termite inspector, a home inspector, a pool inspector, whomever, a loan officer, to answer their questions correctly. Okay, when you start answering questions out of your field and out of your skill set, you open up liability to yourself. And trust me, if you give a wrong answer that causes your buyer to make a wrong decision, or your seller for that matter, however friendly they might seem, they will go after you. Default and dispute resolution. This is just defining what a buyer's default is, what a seller's default is, and what the resolution of the dispute may be. Typically, you're going to go through mediation, not litigation. You don't want to tie up the courts. Typically have a professional arbitrator handle any type of disputes. Attorney's fees and costs. This is just stating who's responsible for what in terms of attorney's fees and costs. Title evidence, restrictions, easements, limitations. This is just stating what the title company is responsible for. Title examination, survey, ingress, egress. Again, these are all definitions as well. What the definition of time is, it's calendar days, not business days. Calendar days, not business days. That's important. What conveyance, closing documents, procedure. Again, these are all definitions. I wouldn't typically go over all this information with them. I would give it at a high-level summary, and they are more than welcome to read it at their leisure. If you get a very analytical person like an engineer, they'll want to go through this whole thing. But you might have someone who's not as analytical, and they'll just want a high-level view. The addenda section, any addenda that you have attached, if there's a homeowners association addenda, because there is a homeowners association, you'll want to put that. If you have FHA financing, you'll have an FHA or VA addendum, you'll want to put that. If it's a short sale, you'll want to put in that you have a short sale one. If it's an as-is contract, you'll want to check as-is. But actually you wouldn't need to, because you'd have an as-is contract, not an as-is addendum. If this was between 2004 and 2008, you want a defective drywall contract addendum. If it was pre-1978, I typically say 1979 or older, you'll want a don't eat the paint addendum, so you'll want a lead-based paint addendum as well. And again, if you have any of these issues, you'll want to check the boxes so they know it's attached. Any additional terms? This is where if your buyer is looking for seller concessions, they would put it here, and you would put it like this: buyer and seller agree that seller will contribute up to 3% of the purchase price to buyer closing costs, prepaids such as home inspections, and points such as interest rate points on mortgages if you're looking to buy down. Okay, so you would put it in that format. Or any other additional terms. Buyer and seller agree that pool equipment will be included in the purchase, in the, sale and purchase of the property. Now, if your buyer and seller are wanting to buy certain pieces of furniture, if they're looking to lease back the property for an amount of time, all of that, that's all fine, but you don't want to put that in this contract because that's just going to make this contract diluted and confusing. You're going to want the buyer and the seller to work that outside of this contract. This is a contract for sale and purchase of the home and sale and purchase of the home only. I put the pool equipment because that's typically an exception, okay, but not always put in the contract, and it's a 50-50 shot whether your seller is going to leave the pool equipment or not if you don't bring it up. But furniture, stuff like that, unless the property in the listing says fully furnished, if they're looking to purchase certain things that are in the home that they like and they want to talk to the seller about it, keep that out of this contract. Have them contact them outside of it. Okay? This information you don't need to fill out. You need your buyer's signatures and the date. And then this is where you would put your name if you're the agent. Sally agent. And then cooperating broker would be Simplicity. Brokerage company. And then you would put the listing agent's name and the listing broker. Now the other thing I would do here is I would put in what your commission is on this property. So let's say it's 3%. I would put 3% right there. Okay? Why? And then I would also print out the MLS when you submit this package to the listing agent. Why? Because, again, with own personal experience, I've had issues where we've submitted an offer and the MLS said 3% to cooperating broker, and the buyer or the seller accepted the deal, and lo and behold, the next day the commission structure was changed to 2% or 2.5%. Okay, which is illegal, but you need documentation to prove that it was at 3%, and you want to put also acknowledging it in the contract that that's what your commissions are. Okay, so you have all this filled out, you have your buyer sign it, and then you'll go to your realtor remarks to see if there's any type of special submission of offers. You can also check showing instructions to see if there's any type of instructions for submission of offers. If not, before you even fill out this paperwork, okay, your buyer wants to make an offer on this property, before you even start filling out the paperwork, save yourself some pain and contact the listing agent and say, hey, I have a buyer, we're making an offer on this property. I just want to make sure that you haven't accepted any offers. Okay? Now there's a high percentage that the chance that the listing agent's going to say, not yet, but we're expecting some now. They say that all the time. As long as they haven't accepted a current offer, just send it. Now, if your seller says, your selling agent says, we have multiple offers or we have 3 offers, provide your highest and best, then if your buyer was thinking of, well, we want to offer $250, but if that's too low, then we'll go up to 300. Highest and best. So, hey, what are you willing to pay for this home? Is it 300? Well, 290. Okay, so your highest and best is 290. You're not going past that. Yes, that's what you're going to submit as your offer. Okay, that's if the listing agent is asking for highest and best, as they have multiple offers on it. Again, make sure that it's not an emotional decision for your buyer. Make sure it's a rational decision for your buyer. You don't want them to get caught up in an emotional bidding war and then pay too much for their home that they wanted to pay for it. No offers are accepted. Please submit your offer. You're going to put your offer package together. So what does that consist of? Your office package will consist of your buyer executed offer page. Okay, you'll want the seller's disclosure. So if the seller's disclosure is not attached to the listing, you want to ask the listing agent to send you over the seller's disclosure. You want that before you make an offer. You'll have your buyers initial that too. If there's an HOA, you'll have the HOA addendum attached. If it's built within 2004 and 2008, you want the defective drywall addendum attached. If it's built before 1978 or 1978 or before, you want the lead-based paint addendum attached. You also want the mold addendum attached as well. All of those can be found on eBroker House or through Transaction Desk. Okay, so if on Transaction Desk, the only one that can't be found for some reason is mold addendum. So you can just print out the one on eBroker House. But again, you can just come here. I would first check the MLS and see I don't have any attached here, but if there's documents attached to this listing, there'll be like 3 little pieces of paper right here, and you'll click on that, and that'll have all the attachments to this listing, which is typically the seller's disclosure and offer instructions. And if there's an HOA addendum, they'll typically have it filled out by the seller already. If there's a lead-based paint, they'll typically have it filled out, mold addendum, etc. Typically have it filled out. If they have it filled out, then just print those out and have your buyer sign those. Okay, but you're going to submit all your paperwork. So your offer, if there's an HOA, your HOA. If it's 1978 or older, your lead-based paint addendum. Okay, if it's between 2004 and 2008, your defective drywall. You're also going to have your mold addendum as well. If it's an FHA or VA loan, you're going to have the FHA or VA loan addendum filled out. Okay, you're going to send that as well. You're going to send it along with, if it's a finance deal, your pre-approval letter for the amount that they're pre-approved for, and your proof of funds for whatever amount they're putting down. So in the contract case, they're putting $10,000 down, and they were coming to close with $40,000 cash. So the proof of funds that needs to be submitted is for $50,000 or more. They need to show in some type of bank account or liquid state. Okay, so they'll need proof of funds for whatever cash they're putting down, to show that they have that cash, and then their pre-approval letter, and a copy of the MLS sheet for the property. And you're going to package all that information together, and along with the seller's disclosure signed by the buyers, and send that over to the listing agent. And that will fulfill a true completed buyer's offer. Okay, so again, everything can be found right here. You can go here, work with individual forms, and then type in all or a fraction of what you're looking for. So for this example, homeowners. Now, I always do this, okay, as opposed to printing it out and writing it. It's just more professional. It looks cleaner. You'll impress your buyers. You'll impress the listing agent if you just type everything out, okay, and then print it out. Or save it as a PDF and then put everything in DocuSign. Okay, so that is the basics of preparing and submitting a buyer's offer on a residential property. If you have any questions, just email me, call me, or text me. You know the drill, and I'll be happy to go over it with you. If you have any other questions, let me know, and I hope you found this helpful.